Hey, so you've been on Twitter since 2011. Were you always this active?
Oh, no way. I created it in 2011. I thought it was like the dumbest thing ever when I first created it. I'm like, why would I even get on here? I followed like
What's this Twitter thing?
yeah, I followed maybe 10 people, didn't see any value in it. I mean, I was probably I don't know how old I was at the time. Definitely in my younger teens. And yeah, I put it down for the longest time. Like I don't even think I had it installed on my phone for until now. Until I think I started like a year and 2 months ago. I started in November, so a year and a month ago. Um, I started actually putting out content. I had been a lurker for a long time. I followed a lot of the OGs on Twitter, like Jose
Yeah,
Rosado. Um,
yeah,
he's the main one that I followed. Like he really got me addicted to that kind of content, if that makes sense. Like I was
nice.
always a
Yeah,
self improvement junkie in a sense, but he's definitely one of the guys that introduced me to that side. And then everyone started transitioning, um, or I guess promoting that you can grow an audience fairly
yeah,
easily on Twitter, I guess you could say. And so after a little
yeah.
bit, I decided to just start posting, and here we are, I
Nice.
guess.
What was the spark that ignited your Twitter journey?
Well, I'd been doing web design for a while before that. I did a lot of stuff before that, but I had my web design business that was doing pretty well, and Twitter seemed like the next jump um, to make more money and build an audience that I could leverage for more clients, or it just seemed like the smart move. Like if I could grow an audience and continue growing it, then why wouldn't I? Right.
Nice, nice. And so okay, and but the why did you choose Twitter? But why didn't you? I don't know. It's not like the most visual of social media.
Yeah. Um, so I had tried previously I had tried doing like a fitness YouTube channel, and that was okay, but I eventually just gave up, as many people do in their first few business ventures. Um,
No.
so I did that. That was fun. I didn't really like. I don't like being on camera. Like I'm fine with this, of course, but um, yeah, I just didn't really like that style of content. I did Instagram for a while. I actually grew on Instagram pretty quickly, but I wasn't. It wasn't a personal brand. It was more so I was creating like Photoshop manipulations, because I had taken a few design classes in college and just went down a YouTube rabbit hole, found out how to make cool looking pictures, and there's a whole like digital art community on Instagram, like Money Twitter. Um, and I was able to grow pretty quickly, but then eventually I burned out, was tired of doing that every day. And yeah, so I guess the reason I chose Twitter over all of them is because I didn't really care for YouTube. I tried it. I didn't really care for Instagram because I tried it. So Twitter, I felt like I could emulate the people that were doing really good on there. I felt like I could take my ideas and write them in a way that sounded good in just 280 characters.
Hmm.
So,
Interesting. So it was more the writing that attracted you to Twitter.
yeah, I think it was more so like remaining or keeping some sort of anonym- anonymity, even though I'm not like an anon account. Um, so it's like, I don't know. I still like Twitter above all platforms. I just like the writing aspect of it. Like I like being able to put like punchy, hard hitting words into like a succinct tweet, as opposed
Yeah.
to like posting. I'm not a big like vanity guy, so I wouldn't like posting myself on Instagram with like an insightful caption. I'd rather just post
Yeah.
the insightful caption on Twitter.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Interesting. And so, when did you find out that you were actually good at the writing part, or when you started that, you started your account in 2011. You probably didn't do anything with it for a long, long time, and then all of a sudden, a little bit over a year ago, you started. How many followers did you have back then?
I had so when I started, I have screenshots of like my different milestones. The first day I started, I had like 141 followers, but those were all like
Yeah,
friends, like high
yeah.
school friends and stuff. So my
People
tweets,
probably not even on Twitter
yeah,
again
yeah,
anymore.
exactly. So I had zero engagement when I started, and um, those that did see my tweets probably just thought like, oh, this guy is posting weird stuff all of a sudden, because they're not on that side of Twitter. They're like, oh, this guy's trying to come out and like make it and be a motivational account or something, or at least that's what I thought. Right, that was my worry at the time. Um,
Yeah,
so I don't know. I Since I'd been following like money Twitter for a little bit, I understood how they wrote the tweets. I understood like what made me like the tweet, and like everyone was kind of preaching the basics of copywriting at that point. So I kind of had that under my belt, and like, okay, I need to write something that hooks in their attention, talks about a problem they have, and then like either tell them how to solve it or just write something that is engageable with. I haven't really broken it down to a science. I just kind of, as I went along, I kind of just found what works and doubled down on that.
yeah, yeah. And so, okay, you started with 141 followers. Nobody engaged with you. They thought, hey, who's this crazy guy tweeting all this strange stuff? Well, how did you get your first signs of traction? What happened?
Yeah. I did what a lot of people do, or I guess what a lot of people preach right now, which is engaging with bigger accounts. Like I'd already been following the bigger accounts, so I started commenting my own insights. Um, and then there were some like Jose and other people that I would reach out to and talk to them and build a connection and sometimes ask advice on what I'm doing. And then from there, this was few and far between. It's not like this happened a lot, but I would get shout outs or they would retweet me because one of my tweets resonated with them. So, like, building that connection and then eventually just growing more and more and more. Um, yeah, that's really how it's done. I think a lot of people overcomplicate the growth process when it's just replying to other people, putting out good content, connecting with the people whose content you like a lot, staying in contact with them, and then they will naturally boost you or help you grow because they enjoy you as a person, I guess you could say.
Well, nice. Yeah, I think a lot of people, well, at least when they're starting out, they need to remember that Twitter is not so much about discoverability. You need to have a certain like base layer of followers for, you to
Hmm.
get engagement and to get traction. But once you do have like a core follower, you can, yeah, your tweets can really blow up. But yeah, don't need to. Well, you need to find other people before you really get to that point. Otherwise, just tweeting to a wall.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
nice. And so okay, and so Jose and some other guys, you started talking. How did you approach that? You had a connection with Jose probably because you were both into the design stuff. Was that something that you had in common and used that to connect with him, or how did that go?
Yeah. I don't remember the exact details since it was so long ago. But we definitely had that web design um, background that we could talk about. I think I just hopped in there one day and honestly don't remember. I was like, "What's up, man? Like, can you help me out with this?" I'm pretty sure I asked if he could help me out with something. He did very kindly, and then the connection kind of just went from there. And we talked. I remember us talking about like our web design products because I did create a web design product pretty early on, and I actually do think that helped with my growth quite a bit. Um, but yeah, we had that in
What was
common.
that? Was that a course?
What was that?
Was that a course
Yeah, so
you
it
created?
was a course, and then one thing that I truly believe aided in my growth was that since it was so web design focused, it was so niche down, I could reach out to people like web designers, and I actually had one big account that affiliated for me for a bit. So he was tagging me in posts. He had like 30K followers at the time. He was tagging me in posts like selling my offer, and then followers would trickle over from that alone. Um, but yeah.
Nice. Yeah, nice. Yeah, I think that's also one of the nicer ways of growing your account is just provide value, and on the one side, if people buy your course, they'll give you a shout out. Hey, I just bought this course. You need to check it out. And on the other hand, you can target bigger accounts
Mhm.
like the 30K account. Say, hey, do you want to affiliate for me? How did you approach that? Why did you choose that account over someone else?
So
The
it,
affiliate account, the 30K.
yeah,
Why him or her, and how did you approach that?
yeah. Um, so originally, I wasn't going for like the money Twitter audience, right? I had bigger plans in play. These have shifted completely, but when I first created that web design course, it was for freelancing, and I wanted to teach web developers specifically to freelance, rather than just like teaching, because at that point I didn't have like a website creation course. I didn't teach people how to actually create the websites. I just taught them how to freelance. So I was targeting web developers who wanted to transition into freelance work, and he was one of the bigger um, like the developer community. He was a bigger account in the developer community, so
Yeah,
reached out to him. He seemed cool. He seemed to be connected with a lot of the people in money Twitter, so I saw that as another bonus. um, and yeah, it kind of went from there. He didn't want to affiliate to start. He said he wanted to grow his account more. And then eventually, I don't think he realized that it was like a freelancing course. And eventually, he hopped in my DMs and he's like, "Hey, you sell a freelancing course?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Oh, I have a lot of people asking, like, how can I start freelancing?" And so I'm like, "You want to affiliate?" And he was like, "Yep." And then that's how it went.
nice, nice. That's interesting. That's interesting. Cool. And how did you get more affiliates, or how did you increase your sales even more? Can you run us through that?
Yeah. So I never really talked about web design or development. So I never really resonated with that kind of audience, like the developer community. Um, I was posting more self improvement stuff and freelancing in general stuff. So I do believe I attracted more of the money Twitter community that want to improve and grow rather than learn more about web development, right?
Yeah.
And so after that, sales started to slow down. So eventually I made the web design course, like actually teaching the web design. And I also have another course. And eventually they like, right now it's selling pretty well. And it's a culmination of all of the above. It's like a 3-in-1 course bundle that
Yeah.
helps you learn how to freelance. It teaches you web design as a skill if you don't currently have a skill. And it uh, teaches you Twitter growth. So like you can land clients from there. So I kind of just eventually evolved it um, to a place that is very high value at a decent cost. And like now, yeah, I'm kind of just going with that for now. So
Yeah.
it,
And this is the missing piece.
oh no, that's the new one. That one just launched. That one's more about offer creation and actually marketing yourself as a freelancer
Okay.
coach, other stuff.
Okay. And so you have a different course that has yeah, the three things you talked about before,
Hmm.
and you've had that for a couple of months now.
Yeah. Yeah. So that one has evolved literally over the lifespan of my Twitter account. So since the very beginning, or like maybe a month after I first started, I released the web design course, the freelancing course, and then over that year, I released other courses and then combined them together. And now there's a new course.
How did that evolve? Why did you make the decision to add something versus another
Yeah.
thing?
Um, so because at first I was targeting the like developer community where I could just teach them freelancing and it would be good to go. Um, I felt like my audience didn't have the skills to actually start freelancing with. So I created the web design product, bundled those two together. So it was like an all in one learn web design and learn how to freelance with it. And then
Yeah,
eventually I released a Twitter course, but that was around the time where uh, like everyone was against Twitter courses. And which is funny because if you just angled it a different way, like if I turned it into a course where it's like how to land clients on Twitter, it wouldn't be considered a Twitter course and it wouldn't get as much hate. I think people are just mad because there's so many out
nice.
there. Um,
No,
so I created my own because I thought I had something different and relevant to say. And part of it was landing clients on Twitter. So it made sense to just combine them all together. And they still sell separately, of course, but like the main thing I promote is them all combined together. So it's like an all in one beginner business bundle, I guess you could say.
no, interesting. And so you started with the freelance course, and I guess a lot of people have this vision in mind that they want to quit their job or they want to start a side business, and then freelancing is probably the easiest thing to do. So okay, I want to be a freelancer myself, but then the next question is, okay, what do I do as a freelancer? And you filled that gap with
Mhm.
the design course, and then the next step was, okay, how do I get my clients? And then that was like a part Twitter growth course, or part how to DM people, stuff like that. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So the freelancing course had the stuff in it to actually land clients. So like teaching people um, cold email, which I know Cold Email Wizard is absolutely killing right now and is probably doing
Yep.
better than I was. So um, I was teaching people what I knew that landed me clients with cold email, how to use those scripts for LinkedIn or Facebook, and of course, Twitter if they wanted to. And yeah, how to actually create the websites, how to onboard for the websites, how to get on a sales call with them and actually close them on the call. Um, and then, yeah, the Twitter course kind of just helped with that. Right.
Nice.
Does that explain or answer the question?
Yeah, yeah, it does. So, were there any specific things or specific, sparks you had? So, okay, I done the freelance course now. I'm gonna do the web design course now. What made you decide to create the second part?
Because I wanted, in all honesty, I wanted to sell more. So I needed more people to understand web design up front to be able to buy the other course, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I
So you
think it,
create your own funnel.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think it helps. It it gave people another option because I know a lot of people don't want to freelance. So like teaching people how to create a website could be, you can sell that at multiple different angles. It can be, oh, you can freelance with this, or you can use it to create a nice website for your current business, or you need a landing page for your info product, or things like that. So it just seemed very, it just opened up more angles for me.
Interesting, interesting. And so, uh, um, let's go back a little bit more into the past.
Mhm.
So, you're a web designer, and that's also what you did in school, or how did you start it? Yeah, so you started. Okay, you did. So you were educated in the web design, and then what made you um, decide to one, choose that, and also two, to become a freelancer yourself? Because I guess you started working for somebody else and then you transitioned to become a freelancer yourself.
Mhm. So starting, without going too much into like the like different stories. So I tried a bunch of different things, right? As I think many people would relate with. trying and failing at multiple different things. So I tried like Facebook ads, I tried web design, I tried um, the digital art page on Instagram, I tried the fitness YouTube channel, a bunch of different things, SEO. And um, so in school, before all of this or during all of this as well, I switched my majors all the time. So I started in marketing, then I went to film, and then I went to graphic design, and then I went to like a hybrid of design and web development. And so when I took that first web development class and like learned basic HTML and CSS, uh, like after the first week of that, I started looking up um, like what developers can make, right? And then I went down that rabbit hole. I saw people getting web design or web development jobs in like 6 months or less because they just studied so hard on their own. And so it's like, oh, like I don't have to freelance. I don't have to do all this. I can just go uh, like learn to code by myself and then get a job in 6 months and then use that to transition into other things. So like while I was in that web design class, I learned probably the entire rest of my college career's like worth of web development in like 2 months. Like I just went super hard in studying. I learned HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then kept taking courses that helped me build out projects in like React and other things. And so I built up a pretty decent portfolio of my coding work, and I got a web design job. Uh, but it was very entry level. It was like, well, it was only like HTML, CSS. It was just like
Yeah.
anyone could have gotten that job within like a month. But I was happy with that. And that job was like part in office, part remote. And so most of the time, like I just spent the time building my freelancing business and getting clients. And eventually, I would say pretty quickly, since so stressed out from the, I wasn't so stressed out about trying to make it with like web design alone or like SEO alone. And the reason I was switching so much is because I wanted to make more money and just not get into a 9 to 5. So when I had that job, I quickly, I would say within like 2 to 3 months, um, like was earning more than my salary. And so I was like,
Well,
okay, like that worked. I guess it was like
I,
a lot of failures building up, like me learning along the way what went right, what went wrong, and then um, just making it
nice,
work. Yeah.
nice. How did you get your clients back then?
It was so I'll go through the whole story, I guess. I started with family and friends, of course, as most people say to do. And so a few of them were free. A few of them paid me like 300, $500 just to help them out. So then I had a solid portfolio. And at that point, I started reaching out to people on Facebook and cold email. I did a lot of different things. I didn't really have one narrow thing, which I would change if I went back and did that. But I would be driving around town. I'd see businesses that like stood out to me. I'd write them down and eventually go and research them. I'd look them up
Yeah.
on Google. I'd
Look
look
up
them
if they
on,
had a shit website.
yeah, exactly. Or not even that too, because I didn't only offer web design, which I'll get into in a bit. So um, I emailed them, positioned myself as, even though I wasn't niche down at the time, I just positioned myself as like, hey, like I only work with your type of business. Um, give me
Yeah,
money, right? A bit
yeah,
more in depth
totally.
than that, but I landed web design clients that way, and eventually like transition into um, like an appointment booking funnel, which I talk about a lot in my courses, which is just a landing page that they can either send paid traffic to, or if they have current traffic, um, they send it there. That landing page gets them, it captures their email, puts them in an email sequence, and it offers for them to book a call. This is for like service based businesses like uh, contractors, pest control, anything that
Yeah,
really needs to
plumber stuff
be
like that.
booked. And then, uh, so you get sent to the booking page, and then if they don't book, they get put in an email sequence that gives them more value, hammers in on their problem, and then offers to get them on a call again to sell them on that service.
Yeah, interesting. Nice. Nice. Okay, cool. Okay, and so you did a bunch of things, and then, um, you know, you started with low offers, $300 to $500, family. How did you transition to higher ticket prices, different services? When did you also maybe settle down a bit more on, I'm going to do design work and not the SEO stuff, or
Mhm.
how did that go?
Yeah. Um, so I guess to preface, even what I just said. So like there was websites, there was the like appointment funnel. I started getting really into funnels in general. So it kind of, um, I started reaching out to different people that I just knew I could help, and then helping them. And eventually it just turned into like funnel consulting and building out part of their funnels. And that's what I do now. I don't necessarily do like website design as a whole, but I know how to sell that, so that's why I sell a product on that, and that's how I first started. um, so I'm sorry, what was the question again? I kind of fell off there.
Yeah, so no, that's okay. So you started with family and friends,
Mm,
$300 to $500 offers. Then how did you go to higher ticket items? How did you niche down? How did you find what you were really good at or what you really enjoy doing?
yeah. um, so I was in like a continuous learning phase of marketing, like trying to learn how to market my products better and provide better service so that I could actually increase my prices, right? And I knew that my work was good enough to increase my price compared to what other people were doing. I kind of took into account like a business based pricing type deal, since I knew my service was good. Um, if I knew a certain business could afford, like, let's say $5,000, then I would charge them $5,000. And that's who I would continue to go after. I continuously narrowed down the clients that I wanted to work with. And
How did you determine that?
there's a few ways. So you can see if they're spending money on ads. So if they're actually paying for marketing and they have a good business, or if they have multiple locations, you know that they may be making good money. Um, so if they're paying ads, they have multiple locations. If they have just a good brand in general, um, yeah, I think those are the main things. And then, of course, when you're getting
No.
them on a call with you, you're qualifying them further. So you're asking them what their uh, marketing budget is. You're asking them what they're currently pulling in monthly, and like what they want to take that to. So you kind of, before you get on a call, you kind of understand how much they can afford to spend then and there. So it's an easier close.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good one. Good one. And so how did you in the end transition to what you do now? Because after a couple of months you were making more money than in your day job.
Mhm.
Did you then say, bye bye boss, I'm going to do this myself? Or how long did you stick with the job?
Yeah. So I stayed there for about 6 months, 6 to 7 months. Um, and the thing is, I wasn't making a lot there. Like, I kind of just accepted the first job that came to me, and that's my fault. I could have hopped higher and higher and up. So, like, at that point, me out earning the job wasn't too like impressive, I guess you could say, but it was enough to sustain me if I did want to quit. Um, but I knew I had to create. I had to save a bit because I knew that freelancing was a bit unstable for me because I didn't have the processes in place completely. It was more so like cold outreach and
Yeah.
referrals. I never really set up the paid ads portion, or um, setting that up. So I had a consistent flow of clients. It was more so up to me, and I wasn't ready to leave my job at that point. Um, So eventually I started earning more. I started getting better. My marketing started getting better. My service started getting better. Um, and I had more processes in place and was able uh, to transition out of it. And then to the point now, making more, it's just like a continuous process of refinement for me. Is like I started with web design, I went to like basic appointment funnels, and now it's like funnels as a whole and like where I can fill the gaps. And yeah, that's really it, I guess you could say. So
Hmm.
where I am now on Twitter, I'm leveraging my Twitter to land more clients for that and sell my products and services, and of course, like build a network of amazing people, because everyone that interacts with me is like one of the coolest like people I've ever met. You don't really meet um, too many people that have your similar values and ideals in real life, but on Twitter they're everywhere, or at least like so it seems,
Yeah.
right? So it's cool to be able to
Yeah.
work with them, and I think that um, is another thing that really accelerated my earnings, because I had uh, good marketing and a good offer in place. That once I built an audience, that was kind of like how I made things very stable, because I did go a time without a job where it was a bit unstable, and that was mostly my fault because I wasn't putting as much work in terms of reaching out to people and actively trying to get clients. Um, so yeah, I guess you could say that's another like reason that I started a Twitter audience, is because I knew that I could build something that would be more stable down the road.
Interesting. And so you mentioned you had good marketing. Can you give some examples of that? What was stuff that worked and that you knew that would attract more clients?
Yeah. So what I mean by that is like, it's kind of what the new course is about, really. So learning how to create a very good offer, right? So rather than just selling a website to anyone and everyone, it's like having an ideal customer, um, understanding, like doing deep research and understanding where they're at now, where your ideal customer is at, and where they want to be, and having unique positioning. That kind of helps you outright position yourself as unique. Um, but what was I going to say? So unique positioning, having the right services that solve the right problems for them. So as I talked about earlier, when I first went from like websites to that appointment funnel, is I was filling a bigger and more pressing problem, right? A lot of people don't necessarily need a brand new website, especially ones that have great websites in their eyes.
Yeah.
So people that are,
They just want leads or customers.
yeah, so like people running Google ads to their website doesn't really make sense. So I can come in, build a landing page to get more people inside their funnel, right? That makes a lot more sense because it's more narrow. I can explain the value of it a lot easier. And yeah, so that's really it, is just like solving more pressing problems, solving and talking to businesses about that too. Like as you get the clients, or as you're growing on Twitter, or as you're in Facebook groups, you can start talking to them, like ask what they're struggling with and see if you can actually create a solution that solves that, and talk with a bunch of different businesses to see if there's any uh, crossover and commonalities between their problems.
Yeah. Interesting. And so you talked also a bit about, crafting like a unique offer.
Mhm.
And I think for a lot of people, well, at least what you mentioned is, hey, I concentrate on like the services business. I create funnels for them. I don't overhaul their entire website. I just create a landing page, make sure either they get more calls in to book services, or I get them into like an email funnel. How would you advise people to come up with like their own unique offer?
Yeah. Um, First, I would target someone that can actually pay you. So make sure you have that down, um, because then you're not really wasting your time on multiple fronts trying to land them as a client. Uh, I would stick to one niche once you hammer it down. Like if you want to go after multiple from the start, you can. Um, but I think the main thing is kind of what you said, is like having that proprietary proprietary solution. So like mine was a landing page, an email sequence, and the appointment funnel as a whole, which sounds much more enticing than something like a website. So if you're selling Facebook ads to local businesses, you can do practically the same thing. Learn how to create a landing page, learn the basics of email marketing, create a solid sequence, and depending on who you're targeting, you can help them get more customers that way. Because I know Facebook ads is pretty popular. So if you're trying to get that business more leads, just figure out what you can learn to make it much easier for them to get more leads, and then package that up as a solution that only you can provide, right? That other people aren't providing, because everyone provides Facebook ads, but who provides the, like the remodel appointment generator, something like that, or like the lead multiplier, something that sounds good, right? It's like your
Yeah.
branding. How are you going to brand yourself in a unique way to a specific niche and actually solve their problems and get insane results? And then once you
Yeah.
get insane results, it just goes up from there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, yeah. And I was thinking, you can easiest way to probably get clients is when you see those Facebook ads, click on them, and when you see a very very bad landing page or website, you can contact them.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And so, how does your business model work? Because I guess you have like the called wireframe, or you have a basic setup already, and you can almost copy paste probably funnels between if you're a plumber or electrician or
Hmm.
carpenter or whatever. How does that work?
Yeah. So my business model currently is a bit different. I've been trying to transition for a while, and I think Twitter was the catalyst of that. Because you don't, like, it would be nearly impossible for me to get like local business clients from Twitter. Like I don't even think I've seen one, maybe a few, but they're just super small and they don't come across your timeline, right? So
No.
now I'm helping personal brands, coaches, consultants, um, and freelancers with their funnel for getting clients. So um, it really ranges on what that person actually needs. But as of now, it's you need um, a traffic source. So for a lot of people, especially the big accounts on Twitter, that's Twitter. So I don't really have to handle that. I can help them do better on Twitter if they need that help. But then it's helping them create multiple different offers. So they have their lead magnet, they have their low ticket offer, and then they have a high ticket offer on the back end. So making sure that everything in terms of those are good, and then helping them with the email sequences to actually sell more of that stuff, if that makes sense. So pretty much optimizing their funnel as a whole.
Interesting. All right, and so let's transition back to Twitter. You right now I think you have 26,000 followers.
Mhm.
What were the things that really helped you grow on Twitter?
Definitely networking. Like I You can grow pretty well by yourself just by posting good tweets and engaging with other people. Um, but like having these don't even have to be engagement groups where like you're retweeting each other. It's more so just having groups where you mastermind together, find out what's working, find out what's not working, bounce ideas off of each other. Um, and those are normally the people that you're interacting with on a daily basis on the timeline. So you're growing that way get you're growing that way by interacting with people that you like to interact with, and you grow together, and eventually you just have a big community of high follower accounts that you can leverage even more and more and more, and just grow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's nice. And any other things that really stood out, in the past year? That you say, wow, this really worked for me.
Hmm. Well, I keep thinking of like Twitter as a whole, because I started that new income stream of like course sales. Um, I refined my offer to a place where I can charge a lot more to the niche that I'm targeting now. And yeah, it just seems like building an audience kind of blew my mind because I didn't really know the power of it before, right? But now it's like you're just building leverage over time to make more money
Yeah.
if you understand uh, how to create offers and how to sell them, right? While at the same time building a community of people that truly enjoy your ideas, whether it's paid or free.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you come up with new ideas to tweet about? What's your process?
Yeah. Um, so I've gone through a few different ways of doing it. Sometimes it's like off the cuff, like I'll be laying in bed at night and just literally trying to think of a tweet. Like, okay, we need to think of a tweet right now so I can pop it in Hypefury, and then it'll come up. Like I'll think of a good idea, I'll write it out, and then it just flows and flows and flows. I don't know how it works, but that's just how that one works. And then sometimes if I'm like really out of inspiration, there's two things I do. So I can look back at old tweets that did really well, and then I'll I can't just copy it, right? I can't copy and change a few letters. So it's like I have to like read one line of it and be like, okay, how can I turn this into a new tweet? How can I turn that one sentence into a new tweet? And so
Nice. Is that your personal code? As in, I can't copy an old tweet.
I,
I
I've
need to create something
I've
else.
I've done it sometimes. I do it occasionally. Like if I'm like gone or like I'm out for the day and I don't have a tweet scheduled, then it's like, okay, I need to scroll back down, grab one really quick, and then pop it in there and put my phone down.
Yeah.
So occasionally, yes, I do. But if I have time, then I like to try to create newer content. Um, and then my other way is I'll consume content, right? So I'll watch someone that I personally like on Twitter, because I mean, not Twitter, YouTube, um, like another personal brand or someone that puts out good content. And I'll listen. And then if something catches my mind, like an idea they're talking about, I can think of ways that I've implemented that in my own life, or just a way that I can put it into words in a good way on Twitter because I wholeheartedly agree with that idea that they just talked about. And the
Yeah.
same goes for like blog posts or something. And it's the same deal with like my old tweets. Like you clearly cannot copy that stuff, but ideas are ideas. If they talk about um, going to the gym, there's a billion different things you could talk about with that, right? And if they
Yeah.
have their own unique perspective, it will probably spark a unique perspective in your mind. So
Yeah.
it's either I just sit there and think for tweets, or go back to current tweets, or I consume information that I enjoy consuming and would enjoy talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. How would you advise people who are maybe a bit more new to Twitter to get into that writing flow? Because I think a lot of like the bigger accounts, they Twitter is just part of their life.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever something happens in their life, they think about that. Okay, what just happened? How can I create a tweet out of this? How can I share value from what just happened to me?
Mm-hmm.
How would you tell others to incorporate that into their life?
Yeah. Uh, I started off by just taking notes, like having my notes ready. So if something popped into my head, I would just take a voice note and um, like stack them up in there. Um, so I do that. And then in terms of just getting into the writing flow, like I knew when I first started and eventually started gaining more traction, like I committed 100% to growing it. Like I knew that I was never going to quit on this. So I knew that I had to make it um, a specific part of my day. And if I didn't end up writing tweets, like sitting down for an hour and writing tweets, then like I knew that I had to do it before I go to bed. Like I just could not skip a day without doing it. Right. And so that eventually became habit. And now it's just second nature to write on Twitter.
Mm, nice, nice, cool, man. All right, man. Thank you very much for this. I love this chat. Where can people find you, Dan?
Um, so Twitter, I'm at the Dan Koe. I don't have many other places set up yet. I eventually would like to consistently start a blog and YouTube and Instagram. Um, but yeah, for now it's just Twitter. Feel free to DM me, say what's up. I like talking to people, especially people that listen to this podcast and are growing on Twitter as well. So yeah, thank you
Cool.
for having me, man.